Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship watching the human space station burn. His crystalline body caught the light from the massive displays showing the battle. Red warning. Lights flashed across station as another volley of plasma fire struck its shields. Their defenses are down to 30%. Reported commander from the weapons station. The reptilian officer's scales shifted color with excitement. We can break through in the next wave. Nodded slowly. The hegemony had been fighting these humans for 8 months now. Every battle had gone the same way. The humans would fight hard with their primitive weapons, but alien technology always won in the end. Plasma cannons melted through human armor like it was made of paper. Energy shields deflected their crude metal bullets. Quantum drives let alien ships dance around the slow human vessels. How many human ships remain? Asked. Sensors show 12 vessels still active. Around the station came the reply. Most are damaged. They're using old chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. Nothing that can threaten our forces. The Admiral felt satisfaction flow through his crystalline structure. The humans called themselves fierce, but they were just primitives from a death world. Their planet had too much gravity, poisonous air, and deadly weather. It had made them violent and unpredictable, but violence meant nothing against superior technology. The hegemony fleet stretched across space like a metal constellation. 300 ships from 12 different alien species. The elegant vessels with their crystal hulls, the flowing myriad ships designed for underwater combat. The massive dreadnoughts built like moving fortresses. Each species brought their own advanced weapons and tactics. Against them, the humans had barely 50 ships total. Most were converted cargo vessels with armor welded on and missile tubes bolted to the hull. They looked like scrap metal compared to the sleek alien warships. Begin the final assault, ordered. Target their reactor section and this quickly. The space around station lit up with weapons fire. Hundreds of plasma beams and energy missiles streaked toward the human defenses. The station's shields flared bright blue, then started to crack like breaking glass. Inside the station, Commander Sarah watched her tactical display with growing despair. Red dots showed hull breaches throughout the outer rings. Yellow indicators marked failing systems. Her small fleet was being torn apart by weapons they couldn't match. Ma'am, shield generators 3 and 7 are offline, reported her communications officer. We've lost 2 more destroyers. The Beijing and the Cairo gripped her command chair as another explosion shook the station. Through the viewport she could see alien ships moving in perfect formation. Their weapons never seemed to run out of power. Their shields deflected everything her forces could throw at them. How long until the shields fail completely? She asked. 20 minutes, maybe less, came the grim reply. Had fought in the border wars against alien raiders for 10 years. She had seen human colonies burn from orbit. She had watched good soldiers die fighting enemies with weapons that seemed like magic, but she had never faced anything like this coordinated assault. The hegemony wasn't just raiding human space anymore. They were claiming it. World by world, system by system, they pushed humanity back toward Earth. They said humans were too dangerous to be allowed to spread through the galaxy. Too violent, too unpredictable. Ma'am, the communications officer called out, we're receiving a Transmission from the alien flagship. Put it through. The main screen flickered and showed Admiral on his bridge, his crystalline features seemed to glow with inner light. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes. "Human commander," he said in perfect English, "your position is hopeless. Surrender now and your crew will be relocated to a suitable world. Continue fighting and they will all die." Stood up straight even as another explosion rocked the station. "This is human territory, Admiral. We won't surrender to invaders. Your species is young and violent." Replied, "You come from a death world. That made you into killers, but killing means nothing against true civilization. We have weapons you cannot imagine. Ships that can cross the galaxy in days. Technology that your primitive minds cannot understand." Maybe said, "But we're still here." His expression showed something like pity. "Not for much longer. Your shields are failing. Your ships are destroyed. No reinforcements can reach you in time. Even if they could, what would a few more Death World primitives accomplish against the combined might of 12 species?" The transmission ended, leaving staring at static. Around her the command center buzzed with desperate activity as her crew tried to coordinate their remaining defenses. "Ma'am," the communications officer said quietly, "should we send out a distress call?" Thought about it for a moment. Earth was weeks away, even by the fastest human ships. The main fleet was scattered across a dozen systems, fighting their own desperate battles. What help could possibly arrive in time? But she was a human officer, and humans didn't give up. "Send it on all frequencies," she ordered. "Full emergency broadcast. Tell them station is under attack by overwhelming alien forces. Tell them we need immediate assistance." "Yes, ma'am. Broadcasting now." The message went out across space at the speed of light, racing toward the inner colonies, and Earth itself knew it was probably useless. By the time any help could arrive, station would be nothing but debris. Outside, the alien fleet moved closer. Energy weapons carved glowing lines through the darkness as they hammered the station's failing shields. The beautiful alien ships looked like deadly jewels against the stars. Admiral watched the human defenses crumble with satisfaction. Soon the death expansion would end here. The galaxy would be safe from their violent influence. The hegemony would restore order to this region of space. He had no idea that far away, other humans were already moving. Ships were turning toward system. Orders were being given, and the true nature of death world survivors was about to reveal itself. The final battle for human space was just beginning. 3 days had passed since Commander sent the distress signal. Station looked like a dying beast, its outer hull torn open in dozens of places. Atmosphere leaked from the wounds in glittering streams of frozen air. Emergency lights cast an angry red glow through corridors filled with smoke, and floating debris moved through the station's core, checking on her remaining defenders. They had pulled back from the outer rings when the aliens broke through the main shields. Now they held the essential areas, life support power, and the central command center. Maybe 2,000 people left out of the original 15,000. "Status report," she asked Lieutenant Park, her chief engineer. "We've got power to essential systems only," Park replied, his face streaked with grease and fatigue. "The fusion Reactor is running at 40%. We've welded blast doors across the main corridors and set up defensive positions at each checkpoint. Through a cracked viewport could see alien shuttles moving between their ships and the station. They weren't in any hurry now. Why should they be? The humans were trapped, running low on everything they needed to survive. The aliens had been methodical. They would take a section, clear it room by room, then move to the next. Their energy weapons cut through human barricades like scissors through paper. Their personal shields deflected bullets and shrapnel. They wore full armor suits that looked more like works of art than military gear. But the humans made them pay for every meter. Hidden mines, ambushes from maintenance shaft, explosive traps rigged to blow when the aliens thought an area was secure. His people fought with the desperate creativity that came from having no other choice. "Ma'am," called Sergeant Martinez from his position at the barricade. "There." Moving up through Section C again. Same pattern as before. Nodded grimly. The aliens would probe their defenses, test their remaining strength, then pull back for another bombardment from space. They could afford to take their time. The humans couldn't. Far away, in the inner human colonies, his distress signal had finally reached its destination. Terra Nova Command Center buzzed with activity as Admiral Tor studied the tactical displays. The holographic map showed human space as islands of green surrounded by an ocean of red hegemony-controlled territory. How long since the signal was sent? Torres asked his intelligence chief. 72 hours, sir. Given the transmission lag, the battle could already be over. Torres was a veteran of the border wars. He had fought aliens before, but never anything like this organized assault. The hegemony had always been content to raid human colonies, steal resources, maybe destroy a settlement to make a point. This was different. This was conquest. "What forces can we deploy?" he asked. Colonel, his operations officer, pulled up another display. "First Expeditionary Fleet is the closest unit with enough firepower to matter. Admiral has been running training exercises in the system. She could reach in 5 days if we authorize emergency transit." "What about the other fleets?" "Scattered across 12 systems, sir. We've been fighting defensive actions for months. Everyone's committed to holding their assigned sectors." Torres studied the numbers. First Expeditionary Fleet was humanity's elite unit, 200 ships crewed by veterans who had learned to fight aliens with inferior technology and win. They had developed tactics that no military academy would teach. Tactics born from desperation and refined through survival. "Send the authorization," Torres ordered. "Full emergency deployment. Tell she has card on weapons and tactics." Sir hesitated. "The fleet will be operating beyond our supply lines. If they're destroyed, then we're probably finished anyway." Torres replied. "The hegemony isn't raiding anymore, Colonel. They're trying to end us as a spacefaring species. We either stop them or we keep running until we're pushed back to Earth." The message went out on quantum communications arrays, racing through hyperspace to reach Admiral. She received it while her flagship, the UES Indomitable, was conducting weapons tests against captured alien technology. Had been fighting aliens for 15 years. She understood something that the enemy didn't. Human weapons weren't primitive because humans were stupid. They were primitive because they were designed by a species that had learned to kill everything on their own planet just to survive. All ships prepare for emergency jump. She broadcast to her fleet, set course for system maximum speed. This is not a drill. The first expeditionary fleet began to move. 200 ships built in the orbital yards around Earth and the inner colonies. They didn't look like the elegant alien vessels with their smooth curves and energy fields. Human ships looked like what they were, weapons of war built by survivors. The dreadnoughts were mobile fortresses with armor measured in meters, not centimeters. The cruisers carried missile pods that could launch nuclear warheads at significant fractions of light speed. The destroyers were fast and deadly, designed to get close enough to use their kinetic weapons effectively. But it was the crews that made the difference. Every human aboard those ships had grown up knowing that their species was surrounded by enemies with better technology. They had learned to fight smart instead of fighting fair. They had trained in tactics that their enemies would consider insane or impossible. Meanwhile at station, the alien assault continued. Admiral received reports from his boarding parties as they slowly cleared the human stronghold. The Death were proving stubborn, but their resistance was weakening. They were running out of ammunition, power, and hope. How much longer? He asked his tactical officer. Perhaps one more day, Admiral. They have retreated to the central core. Once we breach their final defensive line, the station will be ours. Was pleased. The capture of station would open the way to the inner human colonies. Within a year, the hegemony could push the Death back to their home system. Maybe then these violent primitives would accept their proper place in the galaxy as subjects of more civilized species. His sensors officer suddenly looked up from his console. Admiral, were detecting unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system. Explain. Unknown contact bearing 27 Mark 6. Energy patterns consistent with faster than light travel, but not any technology in our database. Felt a flutter of concern. Human reinforcements. Impossible, sir. Human ships are too slow. Even their fastest vessels would take weeks to reach us from their nearest base. But deep in space, something was moving toward system. Something that tore through the fabric of reality with the brutal efficiency of a species that had learned to solve problems with overwhelming force rather than elegant solutions. The human armada was coming, and they were very angry. Space around system exploded into chaos as the human fleet arrived, where alien ships emerged from faster than light travel with graceful energy discharges. Human vessels tore through reality like angry gods. The quantum barriers that held space and time together screamed as 200 warships forced their way back into normal space. Admiral stared at his tactical display in shock. The energy signatures were massive, violent, completely unlike the refined FTL technology used by civilized species. It was like watching someone kick down a door instead of opening it. Politely. Report, he demanded, his crystalline voice sharp with alarm. 212 contacts, his sensor officer replied, scales shifting to worried. Yellow patterns. Ship masses range from 50,000 to 800,000 tons. They're there. Huge, Admiral. The human dreadnought UES Indomitable led the formation, its angular hull by years of combat. Behind it came cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels, all built with the same philosophy: if something couldn't be done elegantly, do it with enough force to make elegance irrelevant. Admiral stood on her bridge studying the tactical situation. The alien fleet was spread around station in a standard siege formation, 300 ships against her 200. On paper, the aliens had an advantage. Had read the intelligence reports, alien weapons were more powerful, their shields stronger, their ships faster. In a fair fight, humanity would lose. Fortunately, had no intention of fighting fair. Open a channel to the alien fleet, she ordered. The communication went out on all frequencies, reaching every ship in the hegemony force. Space appeared on screens throughout the alien fleet, a middle-aged woman with gray hair and hard eyes that had seen too many friends die in alien raids. This is Admiral of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. You are ordered to cease hostilities and withdraw from human territory immediately. You have 60 seconds to comply. Admiral felt his confidence return. 60 seconds. These Death World primitives were either insane or stupid. His fleet had every advantage except numbers, and his numerical disadvantage wasn't that significant. Open a channel, he ordered. Let me speak to this human. As image appeared on his main screen, she looked tired but determined, like someone who had been fighting a long war and intended to finish it. I am Admiral of the Hegemony, he said. Your ships are primitive and outnumbered. Your weapons cannot penetrate our defenses. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated according to the laws of civilized warfare. Smiled, and something in that expression made feel cold despite his crystalline nature. Admiral, you've been fighting our garrison forces for months, defensive units with old equipment and green crews. What you're looking at now is the 1st Expeditionary Fleet. We're the ones who have been fighting aliens for 15 years. We know exactly how to hurt you. Impossible. Your technology is centuries behind ours. Technology isn't everything, replied. Sometimes experience matters more. Your 60 seconds are up. The channel closed, leaving staring at a blank screen. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders. The alien Admiral felt a moment of doubt, but quickly pushed it aside. His fleet had plasma cannons that could melt asteroids, energy shields that could deflect any kinetic weapon, ships that could dance around the slow human vessels. All units engage the human fleet, he broadcast. Demonstrate the price of challenging the hegemony. The battle began with a display of alien firepower that lit up space like a new sun. Hundreds of plasma beams and energy missiles streaked toward the human formation. The elegant hegemony ships moved with perfect coordination, their weapons creating patterns of destruction that should have shattered any opposition. The human ships took the assault head-on. Their thick armor absorbed energy that would have vaporized more elegant vessels. Their shields, crude but powerful, deflected what they couldn't absorb, and when ships were damaged, their crews didn't evacuate. They kept fighting with whatever systems remained functional. Their armor is thicker than our projections indicated, reported S. Weapons officer, and their shields are operating on principles we don't understand. Brute force, electromagnetic fields instead of quantum barrier. Technology. Watched the alien fire tear into her fleet and felt grim satisfaction. Human ships were built to take punishment. They had to be, because humanity always faced enemies with superior technology. The solution wasn't to build ships that never got hit, it was to build ships that could get hit and keep fighting. All ships close to effective range. She ordered, execute battle plan. Omega. The human fleet began to move forward, accepting more damage as they closed the distance. To alien observers it looked like suicide. Their own tactics emphasized standoff engagement with energy weapons. The idea of deliberately moving closer to an enemy was alien to their military thinking. But ships had weapons that worked best at close range, kinetic cannons that fired projectiles at significant fractions of light speed, nuclear missiles with fusion warheads, and most importantly, crews who understood that sometimes the only way to win was to get close enough to hurt the enemy before they could hurt you. The first human torpedo to find its target was fired by the heavy cruiser UES Retribution. It was a simple fusion warhead with a basic guidance system, primitive by alien standards, but it was moving at 12% of light speed when it struck the hegemony battlecruiser Golden Dawn. The alien ship's shields deflected energy weapons routinely, but they weren't designed for kinetic impacts at relativistic speeds. The torpedo punched through the energy barrier like it wasn't there and detonated inside the ship's main hull. The Golden Dawn broke in half, its elegant crystalline structure cracking like glass. Atmosphere and debris exploded from the wound as the ship died in seconds. Admiral watched his tactical display in horror as other human weapons began to find their targets. A destroyer equipped with mass drivers began firing solid projectiles that moved too fast for point defense systems to track. A cruiser launched a spread of nuclear mines that detonated when alien ships came too close. How are they penetrating our shields? He demanded. Their weapons operate on principles we didn't expect, his tactical officer replied. Kinetic energy instead of directed energy. Our shields are designed to deflect plasma and particle beams, not solid projectiles moving at these speeds. The human ships continued to close, their formation looking ragged but effective. They didn't fight like civilized species with elegant tactics and minimal casualties. They fought like predators from a death world, accepting losses to inflict damage, using every advantage they could find. Studied her tactical display as the range closed. Her fleet had taken damage, but they were hurting the enemy. Worse, the aliens were learning what humans had always known, sometimes superior. Technology wasn't enough when facing someone willing to pay any price to win. Signal all ships, she ordered. Prepare for close combat, show them what death can do. Admiral felt something he had never experienced before, doubt about inevitable victory. These humans weren't fighting like primitives, they were fighting like survivors of a world that had tried to kill them every day for millions of years. And they were winning. The battle turned into a nightmare that none of the alien species had prepared for. Human ships closed to ranges that military doctrine said were impossible, accepting damage that should have sent any rational crew fleeing. Instead, they kept coming, their weapons tearing into the hegemony formation with brutal efficiency. Commander watched his sensors in growing panic as another human destroyer rammed his cruiser. The death ship had taken critical damage from 3 different plasma volleys, its hull torn open and atmosphere bleeding into space. By all logic, the crew should have abandoned ship. Instead, they aimed their dying vessel at his command center and detonated their remaining nuclear torpedoes at the moment of impact. The explosion vaporized both ships, taking 600 alien crew members with them. "They're insane," whispered his scales, shifting to the pale colors of fear. "They're deliberately killing themselves to hurt us." Admiral tried to maintain control of the battle, but his fleet was falling apart. The elegant formations that the hegemony prided itself on were breaking down as individual species reacted differently to tactics they had never imagined. The crystalline evolved from mineral structures that grew slowly over centuries, couldn't comprehend the human willingness to accept massive casualties. Their ships began to pull back when damaged, seeking to preserve their crews rather than press the attack. The aquatic nereids panicked when human boarding parties breached their water-filled vessels. The humans came through the hull wearing environment suits that looked like they were designed for the most hostile conditions imaginable. They fought underwater with weapons that still worked in a liquid environment, something no nereid commander had ever considered necessary. The massive dreadnoughts, built like mobile fortresses, found themselves under assault by human fighters that shouldn't have been able to penetrate their point defense systems. But the death pilots flew their craft like guided missiles, accepting certain death to deliver nuclear warheads directly to critical systems. Admiral, his communications officer, called out, "We're receiving distress signals from the nereid flotilla. They're requesting permission to withdraw." Felt his crystalline structure crack. With stress, all ships maintain formation. But the formation was already breaking down. The humans had identified the weakness in hegemony tactics. They depended on coordination between species that had different evolutionary backgrounds and military traditions. Under pressure, that coordination collapsed. Admiral watched the alien fleet fragment. With grim satisfaction, she had studied every piece of intelligence about hegemony forces for years. Their strength was technology and coordination. Their weakness was that they had never faced an enemy that fought like humans. Signal the devastation and the fury. She ordered, execute ramming attack on the alien command ship. The 2 human heavy cruisers broke formation and accelerated toward Admiral's flagship. Both ships had taken severe damage, but their crews were still functional. Their nuclear reactors had been pushed beyond safe limits to give them extra speed. Watched them coming and felt something like terror. All weapons concentrate. Fire on those 2 ships. Stop them. Plasma beams carved into the human cruisers, melting armor and tearing through internal compartments. The devastation lost its port weapons array in half its forward armor. The fury was bleeding atmosphere from a dozen hull breaches. But they kept coming. The devastation struck his flagship amidships, its reinforced prow punching through the energy shields and deep into the alien vessel's hull. The ship's crew triggered every explosive device they carried at the moment of impact, turning their cruiser into a massive bomb. The fury hit 30 seconds later. Her Damaged reactor going critical just as she penetrated the alien ship's defensive screen. The combined explosions tore through the hegemony flagship like a chain reaction, leaving it broken and powerless. Admiral found himself thrown against his command chair as his ship died around him. Emergency lights cast everything hellish red shadows as his crystalline crew tried to save what they could. Through the chaos, he could hear human voices on the communication channels. They weren't speaking like defeated enemies begging for mercy. They were coordinating attacks, calling out targets, pressing their assault with the methodical efficiency of predators who had found wounded prey. Captain Sarah watched the battle from station's damaged command center. The alien boarding parties had stopped their advance when the human fleet arrived. Now she could see alien shuttles racing back to their ships as the hegemony forces tried to regroup. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Park called out. "We're receiving signals from Admiral. She's asking for station status and defensive capabilities." Felt hope for the first time in days. "Tell her we're still operational. Combat ready with local defenses." "What are her orders?" The response came back immediately. "Hold position, we're coming to get you." Outside station, the human fleet pressed their attack with increasing momentum. Ships that had lost main weapons switched to backup systems. Crews that had lost half their ship kept fighting with whatever remained. When vessels were too damaged to fight, their captains used them as guided missiles against alien targets. The hegemony forces found themselves facing tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. Humans used nuclear mines deployed from hidden cargo containers. They fired solid projectiles from improvised mass drivers welded to damaged ships. They sent boarding parties through hull breaches wearing armor that looked like it was designed for exploring the surface of a star. Most disturbing of all, the humans seemed to have contingency plans for every type of damage their ships could suffer. Lose main engines, switch to maneuvering thrusters and become a gun platform. Lose weapon systems, ram the nearest enemy. Lose life support. The crew would put on environment suits and keep fighting until their air ran out. Commander of the heavy division sent an urgent message to what remained of hegemony command. Request immediate tactical withdrawal. Human forces are employing combat doctrine outside all established parameters. They are fighting like viral infections rather than military units. But there was no unified command left to receive the message. Admiral's flagship was drifting, powerless, its command crew decisions based on their own survival instincts. The Elegant tried to maintain formation, but their losses were mounting. The aquatic Nereids had already begun to withdraw their water-filled ships, vulnerable to human boarding tactics. They found their hive mind coordination disrupted by the chaos of close combat. Admiral pressed her advantage ruthlessly. She had spent 15 years learning how to fight enemies with superior technology. The key was to force them into situations where technology mattered less than determination and tactical flexibility. All ships converge on station, she ordered. Establish defensive perimeter and begin rescue operations. Let the aliens know we're not just here to fight, we're here to stay. The human fleet moved toward the battered station like a protective shell. Ships that had been trying to kill each other moments before suddenly found themselves working together to evacuate wounded and secure critical systems. Admiral rescued from his dying flagship watched from an alien medical bay as human reinforcements continued to arrive. The reports coming in were impossible to believe. The Death weren't just winning a tactical engagement, they were systematically dismantling the most powerful military force in the galaxy. And they were doing it with technology that the hegemony had dismissed as primitive. The hegemony's inevitable triumph died in the wreckage of their shattered fleet. What had started as a siege to break human expansion ended as a rout that would echo across the galaxy for generations. Ships from 12 different species fled in all directions, their elegant formations reduced to panic groups trying to escape the Death World predators. Admiral stood on the bridge of her flagship watching alien vessels disappear into faster-than-light travel. Her fleet had taken heavy casualties, 47 ships destroyed, 38 more badly damaged. But they had broken the back of the largest alien military force ever assembled. Station was secure, its defenders rescued, and its facilities being rapidly repaired by human engineering teams. More importantly, salvage crews were already at work on the alien wreck. Scattered through the system, every piece of enemy technology would be studied, reverse-engineered, and turned into weapons for humanity's next battles. Admiral found himself aboard a human medical ship, a prisoner of war with no ship to command and no fleet to return to. The humans had treated his injuries and those of his surviving crew with professional efficiency. They gave him a room with a viewport where he could watch their operations. What he saw there disturbed him more than the battle itself. Human crews moved through space with the casual competence of people who had grown up in a hostile environment. They salvaged wreckage and radiation fields that would kill most aliens. They repaired damaged ships while under acceleration. They worked in conditions that civilized species would consider impossible. 3 days after the battle, Admiral Tour arrived aboard a transport from Terra Nova Command. He came to station not to celebrate victory, but to understand what had really happened. Here, the implications were staggering. Humanity had just defeated the most powerful alliance in known space using supposedly primitive technology. Tour requested a meeting with Admiral. The conversation took place in a secure conference room aboard the human flagship. The alien admiral sat across from his captor, his crystalline features dim with defeat and confusion. "I've read the battle reports," Tour said, studying a holographic display of Earth's biosphere. "Your fleet had every advantage except one. Can you guess what that was?" His voice sounded like wind chimes in a dying breeze. "Superior numbers." "No experience." Tour manipulated the display, showing Earth's history of mass extinction, ice ages, eruptions, and asteroid impacts. "You called us death like it was an insult. You thought it made us primitive, but every human alive is descended from survivors of events that killed 90% of all life on our planet." The alien admiral stared at the images of Earth's violent past, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for years, ice ages that turned the planet into a frozen wasteland, asteroid impacts that shattered continents. Each event should have ended complex life entirely. "We learned to make weapons from rocks and sticks," Tor continued, to find, water in deserts to build shelters in, blizzards to hunt predators that could kill us with a single bite. Every piece of technology we developed was tested against conditions that would destroy other species. But our weapons protested weakly. Our ships, they were more advanced for fighting other civilized species. Tor agreed. Your plasma weapons and energy shields work perfectly against enemies who play by the same rules you do, but we learned warfare from a planet that has no rules except survival. The holographic display shifted to show human military equipment. The designs looked crude compared to alien technology, but Tor explained the philosophy behind them. Our kinetic weapons use the same principles we developed for hunting. Mammoths with spears accelerate a hard object to high velocity and let physics do the rest. Our armor is designed like the shelters we built to survive ice storms, thick, redundant, able to absorb punishment that would shatter more elegant materials. Was beginning to understand, and the realization filled him with a cold that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. Your entire species, you're not just warriors, you're apex survivors. Exactly. Tor gestured toward the viewport where human ships continued to arrive from deeper in their territory. And now we've had 3 centuries to apply that survival instinct to spacefaring technology and warfare. Every human ship is designed by engineers whose ancestors survived the worst disasters imaginable. Every tactic is developed by officers whose species learned to coordinate during planetary catastrophes. The alien admiral slumped in his chair. As the full implications hit him, the hegemony picked a fight with 4 billion years of evolution's finest work. You attacked our colonies because you thought we were too dangerous to be allowed to spread through the galaxy. Tor said, you were right about the dangerous part, but you made one critical mistake. What mistake? Tor smiled, and it was the same expression that Admiral had worn during the battle, the look of a predator that had found prey. You thought being dangerous was a weakness. On Earth, being dangerous is how species survive long enough to evolve. Through the viewport they could see station being transformed. Human engineering teams were installing new weapon systems salvaged from alien wrecks. Defensive platforms were being deployed throughout the system. What had been humanity's last outpost was becoming their first fortress in what was once hegemony space. What happens now? Asked. Tor pulled up a star chart showing the local region. Red markers indicated hegemony systems. Green showed human territory. Yellow marked neutral zones, where other species maintained their independence. Now the galaxy learns a new lesson. Tor said, the hegemony spent centuries teaching other species that resistance was futile, that advanced technology always beats primitive force, that civilized warfare has rules that everyone must follow. He highlighted several systems near. We're going to teach them something different. We're going to show them that sometimes the primitives win, that survival instinct can beat technological superiority, that death don't just adapt to hostile environments, we make hostile environments adapt to us. Looked at the star chart with growing horror. The humans weren't planning to stop at defending their territory. They were going on the offensive, carrying their violent philosophy into the heart of hegemony space. The other species will unite against He warned. They'll see you as an existential threat. Some will, Tor agreed. But others will remember that the hegemony conquered their worlds with the same arguments they used against us. Superior technology, inevitable victory. The right of advanced species to rule over primitive ones. He stood up, preparing to leave the broken alien admiral with his thoughts. Those species are about to learn that there's another option. They can fight back, and if they need teachers, well, death make excellent instructors in the art of survival warfare. As Tor left the conference room, remained staring at the star chart. The Battle of Station had been more than a tactical victory for humanity. It was a proof of concept that would spread across the galaxy like a virus. The age of inevitable alien superiority was over. The age of human expansion had truly begun, and the galaxy would never underestimate Earth's children again. Outside the viewport, human construction crews worked around the clock to expand station into a major naval base. When they were finished, it would be more than just a fortress. It would be a symbol that when death answered an SOS, they didn't just rescue the desperate. They reshaped the balance of power across the stars.